Hello and welcome back to the New Wave Hockey YouTube channel. I'm going to be really honest, look at the length of this video. It's a long one, it really is. My May rankings was really long to make, and I had to end up breaking it into two parts. So this is going to be part one, where I go over 20 prospects with the lovely Anna Pierce, who is just so amazing. She is probably one of the most knowledgeable people that I've had on the podcast ever. Her and Ethan Hage know so much about prospects. Like, they're both fantastic. Anna had just a very great episode today, so it's going to be a very exciting one. But I just wanted to come on here really quickly and let you guys know that there's going to be a part two, and you can watch that. It's coming out the exact same day that this comes out as well. And I will go over picks 21 through 50 because, again, there's a top 50 that I'm doing through this, so get excited for that. That's really all I had to say. Enjoy the video. Hello and welcome back to New Wave Hockey. I'm your host, Link Dansevich, and today we will be going over my May rankings for the 2024 NHL Draft. And I'm joined by a very special guest. Everybody, please give a warm welcome to Anna Pierce.
Hello.
So tell us a little about yourself. I mean, we both go to school together. You're another product of the SU Hockey Analytics Club. And what do you have in common with Mr. Macklin Celebrini?
His dad works like a 30-minute walk down from where I live. Big Bay Area kid, big Sharks fan, and so thrilled about the results of the lottery.
So yeah, you are a Sharks fan. You're from the Bay Area. How does it feel that you're going to get Macklin Celebrini?
I'm so excited. We've actually never picked first, which is like, I think I didn't actually realize because we had Joe Thornton, but we didn't pick him. Patrick Marleau was a second overall. Like, we've had so many big name guys, but we've never actually chosen first, which is super exciting. I really love Macklin Celebrini. I really love his Bay Area connection. Like I said, I live in San Francisco. His dad works 25, 30 minutes down that way from me at Chase Center. He was a junior Shark for a year. I really love the narrative aspect of it. I think we need a really big key piece for our rebuild. A guy who's going to be our next, like, Joe Thornton, Patrick Marleau, Joe Pavelski, like, big forward, reliable centerpiece. And I think he really could be that. And I'm really excited about it.
I mean, yeah, you guys got a really good pick coming down the pipeline for you guys. Now, why we're here today, of course, every single month I come out with another rankings for where I think the NHL draft kind of fits. This month, May, we have a big task at hand. We are going to be knocking down 50 prospects today. Yeah, it's kind of a comprehensive list. I will be going in increasingly less detail as we go along because, again, I mean, I will eventually go to up to 100 in June, which is kind of a big task by itself, but I mean, I'm ready. I'm really excited about this draft. It's kind of grown on me a little bit. I mean, it's a weak draft, but I mean, they've grown on me. So, Anna, are you ready to tackle 50 prospects for May?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Well, why not? Let's just start off with the best of these prospects from Boston University, the Hobey Baker winner and the presumptive first overall pick, future Shark, Macklin Celebrini. Now, let's just talk about what's special about him, because I think where it really all starts is in his skating. You just look at the way that he plays. He just is a very explosive skater, and it all starts with him just cutting through the middle of the ice. He's a very smart skater. He's a very dynamic skater. He skates with a purpose. He just cuts to the middle of the ice, drives play. Again, I think he's one of the best play drivers that we've seen in these last few drafts. He really has a very special ability to do that, combined with a shot that has improved so much over the year, and an amazing passing vision that it's just so advanced for someone his age. He's still 17, which is something I really can't grasp. That's unreal. And then it really is. Combined with excellent compete, he really shapes up to be probably one of the most dynamic two-way forwards coming up in this next decade. Anna, how exciting is it to get a player like this on the Sharks?
I'm so excited about him. I can't even talk about it. Like, I am really partial to a big 200-foot game. I really loved Dylan Holloway in college because he is kind of that, like, do-it-all kind of player. And I think it's something that we need. Obviously, the Sharks are really, really bad. And I think, and we have some really good prospects coming up, but I think he provides a really comprehensive game that we've really been missing in the past few years. Like you said, insane shot, insane skating. He kind of projects for us, obviously, as a 1-2 punch down the middle with Will Smith, which I think in the future is just going to be crazy.
Another great
I mean,
prospect.
I know the BCBU rivalry turning into a 1-2 is going to be crazy, but I'm so excited about it. And he is only 17, and it's crazy when you think about it. Like he had a 1.68 average points per game.
Oh
That's
yeah.
crazy. That trails like one of the things I was doing research. That only trails Eichel and Fantilli in terms of like draft eligible players. Like they were both old for had late birthdays, were old for their draft classes. Like this kid is still
Fantilli was like a man last year. He was a
yeah, he
grown man,
was.
and this Celebrini, he's just a kid. He's 17.
Exactly. I mean, Adam Fantilli threw a punch in a game last year. So he
Yeah.
he was a grown man. But yeah, like Celebrity's still a kid, which is also like I wouldn't necessarily blame him if he went back to BU next year. I think that that's like an
I think
interesting.
I think he's a lock to be in the Sharks opening night roster though.
I think if he signs, he is. But I don't blame him for going back
No, and I
because
get that.
yeah,
And that's
I
something you and
wouldn't
I
blame him for
were
going back.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
that's something you and I wanted to talk about really quick. I wanted to start this off because I caught a lot of heat last time for this comment that I made. But what I really wanted to talk about is Celebrini two-way style of play. It is just so tremendous, and I think it's going to become a huge factor in his
Mhm.
first few years in a Sharks uniform because they're not going to be very good, and he's going to need to really focus on that 200-foot game. I caught a lot of flack a couple episodes ago for comparing him to Tyler Mott. And granted, let me explain myself. Let me be really, really clear here. He is not Tyler Mott. There are aspects of his game that I really think compare to a guy like Tyler Mott. His 200-foot game, his really excellent shot, his really developed vision. He has aspects that are really just advanced and contribute to a two-way game, which I think fits more to a Tyler Mott. Of course, his more playmaking style of play, his really high IQ, that compares to like a Braden Point or a Jonathan Toews. He's a sort of player that we haven't really seen a lot in this day
Yeah.
and age. So I think he's more of a combination of those two players. I think that it's really hard to compare a player like Macklin Celebrity to anybody that we've seen because
Yeah.
he's just so complete up and down the ice. I think he's just gonna have to really lean on that 200-foot game in the first like 3 or 4 years of his play though. So don't expect him to blow the doors off offensively.
I think that's why he's kind of flown out, like not like okay, like flown under the radar, like quote unquote, for like a first overall pick, like as much as one can, because he doesn't have that like one big flashy skill. Like he really is very well rounded, has a very high two-way ceiling, in a way that I think could just be like this really solid cornerstone for the Sharks in the future, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and he can just kind of grow into whatever the Sharks want him to
Yeah,
be. And I think he's going to be a future captain for this team. If you
I
just
agree.
watch him in interviews, he's just a very mature player. Now
Yeah,
let's move on to
yeah.
my second ranked player in this entire draft. I don't think
Mhm.
he's consensus.
I
He's
have
pretty
seen him high. I've seen him high.
I've
I
seen him
will give you
high.
that.
I've seen some lists where he falls to like 6 or 7. I just
I don't
don't
know. I think
understand why.
it's crazy. This draft is like it's like Celebrini and then it's a mess. Like nobody agrees.
I honestly think that anybody that doesn't have Ivan Demidov at number 2 is kind of kidding themselves. He is just the full package. He's a fantastic player, and I think it all starts with that incredible puck control. It kind of sets up every aspect of his game. His violent hand movements. Everything just has a purpose with him. He doesn't just create and do flashy moves just to do them. He has a purpose to get around defenders. It is a hallmark of his game. It sets up amazing passes. People also say that his skating is not amazing. He is kind of a 2-10 skating style. If you remember watching Antonio Stranges in the OHL or Brant Clark, they have kind of a 2-10 skating style where, again, it doesn't generate a ton of speed, but that edge work, it's so good. So I really think that he is the best passer in this entire draft. He's the
Yeah.
best stick handler in this entire draft, and he's got some good compete. Anna, what are your thoughts on Ivan Demidov?
I really, really like him. I know that like people, I mean, I'm a former figure skater. I love when players skate really well. So like the Hughes brothers skating, just my favorite thing of all time. I love when players skate well. I know that he is like kind of not the best skater in the draft, but I think like you bring up guys like Brant Clark. Like Brant Clark is fine in the
Yeah.
NHL. Like his skating isn't his strongest point, but that's because he's such a good playmaker, right? Like, and so it is comparatively lower. And like, he's so good. He's so hard to play against in one-on-one battles. You mentioned like going around the defenders. I think he's so talented. And I think he would make sense here for Chicago. They could add another potential elite skill player up front. They could get a potential winger of the future. They have Bedard and Nazar right now. I'm really high on Frank Nazar. There's personal bias in that. But I think he would add to a very talented forward group. And again, he does have that compete. He has that work ethic that Chicago wants in their rebuild. Obviously, Chicago could go a couple ways here, but I think he would be a good pick for them.
I also agree. And again, the skating, people have made a lot of big fuss about it. I don't think it's that bad. I honestly
Yeah.
really think his edge work is some of the best in the draft. So we will see where he goes. We will see what he ends up doing. But I think he's really earned that number 2 spot for me. And I think lock it in, throw away the key. That's how I feel. I don't really
Yeah.
see him moving outside of number 2 unless something really drastic happens. But,
Yeah.
Demidov, he's my number 2. Lock it in. Now,
Oh,
let's start a
this is gonna be
conversation.
good.
Oh, this is going to be good because you know exactly where I'm going with this.
Yep.
Let's start off with this discussion because the defensive class in this upcoming class, I think there's a very clear top 6
I would agree.
defensemen in this class. That's Ziv Boyum, Artem Levshnov, Anton Salayev, Sam Dickinson, Carter Yakamchuk, and Zane Perek in no
Yes.
particular order. Maybe that was in a particular order, but there's a very clear amount of defensemen in this class that just look so advanced to their game.
No, they're
And
crazy.
it's kind of people have gone back and forth with who's the best defenseman in this class, and
It
everyone seems to have their own
changes.
opinion. I personally have my very strong opinion that Ziv Boyum, he is above every single defenseman in this class. And it really just starts again with his elite IQ. I think he's got the best IQ in the draft. He thinks the game 4 steps ahead of everyone else. He makes passes that maybe some of his teammates don't even understand why he makes the passes, but they work. They get open shots. Again, his skating really solid. He's very physical and attacks the middle of the ice. He looks like a forward sometimes when he's driving and supporting
Does.
the rush. I love his physicality. I love his compete. Someone described him because he looks like a linebacker on the ice. It's actually insane. He looks really solid there. And
Yeah.
again, he's got a great shot as well, which is underutilized.
Does.
He's got a really solid passing game, as you saw in the World Juniors in the national tournament. I really think there's no aspect of Ziv Boyum's game that I really dislike. He is the most complete defenseman, and I can't really pick holes in his game because again, he's just such a well-rounded player. Anna,
So
what are your
good.
thoughts on Ziv Boyum as the number
You
1 defenseman?
definitely swayed me on him because I was like, oh, he was really good at World Juniors, right? He was a key part of that gold medal. And then I heard your opinion, and then I watched the national championship, and I was like, holy crap. This guy is amazing. He did have a really good national championship game. He also got better as the season went on, which is like something I like to see in a prospect because they're so young. You want them to develop like relatively quickly to show that they do have that upside, the potential. Like there's something to say he can't keep getting better with the track that he's on right now. I think that's really, really promising for a team. Again, key part of that World Junior Gold, key part of Denver's national championship. Looking at some of his stats, he was top 10 in scoring among NCAA players as a freshman, top
That's
20
unreal.
in the NCAA in average points per game. Like he's so good at everything. And the thing that I really like in defensemen is like, especially at this age, is when they can actually play defense. And that sounds insane, right? Like you're a defenseman, play defense, but offensive defensemen are so like prevalent right now. And I think when you are like an NCAA freshman and you are working a blue line well, that speaks really well to kind of your skill set and your ability and your maturity and your compete. And that's also something I really love with his game.
Now, moving on to a right shot defenseman this time, Artyom Levshinov from
Yes.
Michigan State. There's a lot of things to talk about him, and I feel like I am at liberty to kind of just make a lot of claims about him because I've seen him in person 3 times.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I saw him twice when I went to Detroit in February, and then I saw him again. He actually is just unbelievable in person to watch. I had my misconceptions about him. I was
Yeah.
like, he's lazy. If you watch him play, very stiff from the
Yeah.
torso up. But his skating and his separation is really, really good. I never gave him credit for it, but he just gets great speed under him. It's kind of nonchalant. And then his passing is also really solid and advanced for his game. He joins the rush like
I
Miro
love that
Heiskanen, which is just
from
an
defenseman.
excellent trait for him.
Yeah.
He single-handedly saved their season versus Western Michigan in the semis
God.
yeah, did you see that goal? Just
I did. I'm a big my best friend works for Michigan hockey, so I was in fact rooting for them not have to play MSU again because obviously they played them so much during the regular season, lost to them in the Big Ten championship. Like MSU has been giving Michigan fits all year. This kid is a big part of it, right?
they
And
did
single-handedly
beat
saved that
him when it
season.
mattered. So
I was not happy about it, but it was really like personally, but it was really impressive.
yeah, so I saw him beat Michigan twice in Michigan, in Detroit and in Ann Arbor, and he was electric. He had 1 assist through those 2
Mhm.
games, and again his point totals kind of shows that again
Yeah.
his upside for a 2-way game and his offensive upside is not as big as other players,
Mhm.
but he has the potential to be a very solid two-way defenseman.
I
Look
would
at his
agree.
defensive compete. I would say he's the second or third best player at just getting people out of in front of the net. Like, what I noticed from him is that Michigan liked to screen Trey Augustine a lot
Mhm.
during that game. What he
Yeah.
would do is just push them out of the way like it was nothing, because
Yeah.
he's 6'3" and he can do that. He just
Yeah.
moves people out of the way. He's a manhandler, and I
Crazy.
just really like the catch up speed that he makes when he makes mistakes. He's just a very smart defenseman. I think his compete can activate when he has the will to activate. I really like Levshinov, and I think as a right shot defenseman, he might be a lock at 3 for Anaheim.
I would agree.
But
Yeah.
there's been rumors that he might go 2.
I think it depends. Chicago could really like a guy. They have a large young decor that he would fit really well into. Guys like Alex Vlasic, Kevin Korchinski, who should have been a Shark. I'm really mad about that, Chicago. It's been a couple years. I'm still a little grumpy. I really wanted
Yeah.
Korchinski. But again, like he would really add to that defensive group and establish that young, big, like sizable identity for Chicago. So I could see them going that way. Obviously, they have guys like Bedard and Nazar up front. Maybe they could say, oh, we want a defenseman more than we want a forward and pick him here. But I also think he would be really good for Anaheim. Again, we talked about how they need a defenseman, but I think he would be good for that team. I like
Let's
that.
now move on to the third defenseman in a row,
Mm,
Anton Salayev. It's not so much about his offensive game because his defense is elite. I think he could slot in as a top 4 pairing defenseman
I would
right
agree.
now. He is that
Yeah.
good where he can make someone's defense better day one.
Mm.
I really think wherever he goes, he's going to really just be a plug and play guy. And he can even play next year. He needs to develop an offensive game. Some people have compared him to Victor Hedman. And yes, there are flashes when he's got great skating, an
Yeah.
incredible skating ability. He is just probably one of the best developed skaters in the draft. Impressive speed for someone who's 6'7", really insane edge work for someone who's 6'7", or just at any height at all. But he moves the puck up really well on the ice. He doesn't really puck handle that often. You see the flashes there. He's got a ton of potential. He's got a wicked shot. Anton Salayev, a bit of a project, but my number 5 overall player. Your thoughts, Anna, on Salayev?
I really like this kid too. I mean, I feel like this draft has so many good skating defensemen, which is nice, but I also looked like he had the most ever points in the KHL for a U18 skater. Like, I mean, for a guy who doesn't have a lot of tangible offensive
And
upside
he
right
did
now.
that in the first half of the year. Like, he didn't score
Exactly.
at
That's
all. Like,
impressive.
really. Yeah.
Yeah, like for a guy that doesn't have a lot of offensive upside, that like it shows that he can produce, even though like a lot of people are saying, hey, like it might not translate to the NHL. Like the potential is there, right? I also think that I mean, like there are teams that are really looking for a potential shutdown defenseman. Again, offensive defensemen are really prevalent right now, and he does need to develop a little bit more of an offensive game. But I think his potential to be a shutdown defenseman could be really key for a team. I know Columbus at number 4 is looking for a defenseman right now. They have a pretty solid forward group. Again, this was why I really liked Jake Sanderson a couple drafts ago, where in that sense, like Ottawa needed a shutdown D and they got him in Jake Sanderson. And I think that Salayev could be that defenseman for a team.
Yeah, the 6th ranked prospect on my list, Katon Lindstrom from Medicine Hat. The only reason why I have him below guys like Levshinov and Salayev, because I originally had him at 3 or 4, is because of injury concerns. His
Yeah.
skating, very good. He's a very efficient, smooth stride, a little bit choppy, but he gets good separation speed. His shot is fantastic. He was in my honorable mentions for top 5 shooters in the draft.
He's
His
good.
passing has slowly become one of his better traits. I mean, like his puck control is also really solid, and his compete. He plays with a physical style of game that just
Yes.
is so coveted in the NHL. He could reasonably slot in as a number 1 center in like 2 years for
Yep.
somebody. He really could change the dynamic of a franchise. He projects to be someone so solid, but 2 major injuries in his draft year. That's a bit of a concern. Anna, what are your thoughts and feelings on Caden?
I saw a comparison to Adam Fantilli and I was immediately sold because again, like we're talking kind of that similar like tenacious style of play. I said it earlier, Fantilli punched a guy in college last year.
He's a mean dude.
He is. He punched a guy in college last year and then hyped up the crowd as he went off. It was an MSU game, but he like I love Adam Fantilli. Like so again, like similar style, kind of similar like skating ability, playmaking ability. And again, like we're kind of seeing Adam Fantilli right now. I mean, obviously he had that like insane injury with Columbus, but make an impact. So if we're talking similar players, he really could make an impact. And he has the size and strength to kind of like cause havoc in front of the net, muscle people off the puck. Like I think he is a good pick that like I can confidently say if like the injuries aren't a concern or like that's something that just like maybe he had two bad injuries and that just happens and now he's fine. And like if that happens, he is, I think, a very like reliable makes him sound not good, but like a safer forward pick, right?
Now moving on to our number 7th ranked prospect. I have from London in the OHL, Sam Dickinson. He is just one of those defensemen that is just so complete front to back. You can't really pick a lot of holes in his game besides like, again, that he's not really dynamic offensively, but then again, he has a great shot. He joins the rush. He's really good at skating. He's not tremendously fast, but he's a really good skater. I think we have to see him outside of the OHL. I guess because he's going to go back next year. He's going to play with London again, and he's going to dominate, which is good for him. But I would love to see him potentially sign and play in the AHL next year because I think it would be really good for his development. I'm really just worried about the competitiveness of that league. It's why it's bringing him down for me because again, we have the 3 players ahead of him defensively are Salayev, who's in the KHL, the second best league in the world, and Buyum and Levshinov, who are in the NCAA. Dickinson, another thing that I really didn't really touch on, his passing, a very big strength of his. He has a great vision. He likes to shoot for rebounds. I really don't see a lot of holes in him. Players ahead of him do things better. So, Anna, thoughts on Dickinson and where he could land and what he does for a franchise?
I really like him. I think that there are a lot of teams that are very dialed in on the OHL and still really like picking OHL players. Like I know that the NCAA is very much on the rise and I really love college hockey. So it's really, really exciting to see how much the quality of that league has shot up. But I think there are a lot of teams that would take his work in the OHL and go, this is great. We would love him here.
He's number 2 on a lot of lists. Like McKean's
Yeah.
has him slotted in as the best defenseman they have and
Yeah.
number 2. And that's not
Yeah.
going to change.
No, I think that like he is I'd like to see again, there aren't a lot of holes in his game. I really like a defensive defenseman and he is showing work above like defensive work above his age group. He has a very active stick that I really enjoy. I think that kind of shows like a really good defensive maturity. He's very positionally sound in his own zone. I think the thing that I worry about with defensemen, young defensemen, is if they're, if they have a lot of offensive upside, are they a defensive liability? And he definitely is not showing that at all. One of the teams that could take him, Ottawa at 7, Seattle at 8. Ottawa needs defense. And they also need like best available at that point. He could fit really well for them.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about Seattle, they don't have a premium defensive prospect. I have seen him to Seattle in multiple mocks. So I think he could fit really interestingly here. Seattle also has a tendency of like not necessarily shying away from like skill or players that people have kind of questions about. And so I think that, you're like, okay, we want to see how this translates from the OHL. That could potentially be something that Seattle will bet on.
Exactly. Now moving on to number 8 on my list, I have Tej Aginla from the Kelowna Rockets. He is absolutely just skyrocketed up my board. I was kind of like being like, he's not gonna go top 10. Like, come on, he's
Yeah.
not gonna get good enough to be top 10. I've watched the U18s. I've watched him in the playoffs. I've been watching him. I want to put him higher if I could. He is
Yeah.
fantastic. And now there's legitimate talks about him going number 5 to the Canadians. I get it. I get it now.
Yeah.
The fact that he's in a center holds him back a little bit for me, but
Yeah.
it puts him over a guy like Berkeley Catton, who I know will have trouble playing center at the next level.
Yeah.
His skating, TJ's skating, is something that nobody talks about because it's always stick handling and scoring ability with the shot.
Yeah.
His skating is really, really good, and his compete is also there. He fights on the boards. He just loves contact. He's not like a power forward like his father, but he's going to be like a sniper 2-way guy. It's a shame he's not going to fall outside of the top 10, but he's going to be a tremendous forward inside this top 10. Anna, I mean, what gets you most excited about Tej?
I really like a couple of things about him. He's really dangerous in transition, right? And I think
Yes.
that there are like, and that's a combination of like puck skills, playmaking. I love a forward that's dangerous in transition. Like, yes, getting up in your zone is important, but you're going to get so many goals at the professional level from transition plays, from breakaways, right? Like, he could split a game open by doing that at the pro level. And I'm really, really excited about that. The other thing I love for him is he's not afraid of like getting in on the forecheck. And like, there are players in the draft, especially younger players, like I don't think this draft, but like in general, who kind of like shy away from contact, shy away from getting like nitty gritty. And then you see that that doesn't like necessarily translate very well at the next level. And I think that he is the exact opposite of that. And I think that will translate very, very well. Like you said, great sniper. I'm really excited about this kid. I think he's going to do some insane things.
At my ninth ranked prospect, Carter Yakamchuk, who is playing for the Calgary Hitmen at this very moment. Another player that, again, I'm kind of sticking my neck out for. I think he's a little bit better than Zane Perek in a lot of areas. His skating is electric. He's a very fast player. He's got a choppy but a really quick stride, and he's got great edge work. I mean, he can't really stop once he gets going, but again, really good skating. Shooting is probably the best part of his game. He was on my best shooter honorable mentions list, and he can really just rip a puck. That's like a hallmark of his game. I think it's really translatable to the next level. And because he's such a good shooter and a good skater, his passing's great too. His puck control, I never thought that it would be this good. I like went back and looked at him a
Yeah.
couple times. Oh my goodness. He
He's
just
so
he
talented.
makes people look silly. And I think his compete can be very good at times, but he gets out of position defensively. He takes way too many dumbass penalties.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's really bad, but there's potential there. If he can just get somebody to just round out his game, because he's playing really well in the dub, which is, as everyone knows, the best CHL league. Anna, your thoughts on Carter Yakamchuk as my fifth ranked defenseman?
I really like him. I get, like you said, the skating, the shot, like he's gonna get out of the rush, he's gonna dance around defenders, he's gonna be really dangerous in transition on potentially on like a power play. He's so, so good. The penalty minutes are a little bit of an issue. I think you have to clean them up, but I don't necessarily think that like you have to clean up the dumb ones. But I don't necessarily think that him having like a crap ton of penalty minutes is a bad thing. I think he could potentially go to a team that needs a little bit of snark, a little bit of like a rougher game. I think you have to clean up the dumb penalties, but
Yeah,
I think that you would need to do that without getting rid of the snark in his game, and then he becomes dangerous offensively, but then he can also kind of give a team a little bit of personality.
exactly. Now moving on to number 10 and the sixth ranked defenseman in my top 10. 6 out of 10 defenseman loaded. Zane Perek from Saginaw, who some people project as the next Quinn Hughes. There's a lot of flip-flopping for me. I really like Zane, but I really like the five defensemen ahead of him a little bit more. Carter Yakamchuk, a little bit of a liability on defense. I don't think as much as Zane. There's obviously the issue of defense with Zane as a defenseman, really weak kind of on compete. He really shies away from physical play. That's not a good trait for somebody who's going to go top 10. His overdependence on his stick has made him a better defenseman as of late. He's looked a little bit more improved, but we can't just talk about that without talking about his elite offensive game. He is just downright dirty with his skates and edge work. His shot is not really fast, but is highly, highly accurate. I mean, he loves to get open in space and just create a different shot for himself. Downright disgusting mitts. I mean, if you see some of his just moves that he makes with stick handling, he's crazy. Anna, I mean, what else is there to say about Zane? He's just incredible, but just an enigma, really. He really is an
Yeah.
enigma.
I get scared when players don't have defensive compete and they shy away from contact. We've talked about it a ton because the number one pick. Big Sharks fan. I'm a little traumatized from the Ryan Markley pick. I would not necessarily be tempted to use a pick this high on a defenseman like this. Obviously, that was a guy we took a risk on, and he got better, but it didn't necessarily pan out. The thing with Zane, though, is his offense is good enough to maybe justify the jump in a way that Markley's wasn't. I mean, again, 33 goals, 96 points for Saginaw this year. Absolutely dynamic in the offensive zone.
He's putting
Like,
up points that we haven't seen in the OHL
yeah,
for
it's
a defenseman.
crazy. He is also a right shot. That is something that teams would really like. Again, you would have to worry about the defense, but I think that his offense has enough like power and upside that I think there are teams that we would be willing to take a gamble on him. A lot of teams in this area need defense. Calgary, their recent pick's been forwards. We talked about it. If they don't pick a Ginla, they need a defenseman. They could potentially take him for his offensive upside. The Devils don't at like 10 might not want to go for a guy like this. One of the people, when I alluded to people being afraid of contact, I was talking about Holtz. And
Yeah.
I and a guy that didn't necessarily I mean, he's good. He's just not where they want him to be. And
Exactly.
I think that they would be kind of gun shy with this pick. I don't necessarily think that they would be willing to take a chance on him here because of what's happened before. And they also just used their recent high picks on defense with Luke Hughes, Simon Nemec. They just signed Seamus Casey, who I'm really big fan of. So I think New Jersey goes forward. But again, Buffalo at 11 could also pick a defense. They could use this pick for trade capital because they need to be better on the at the NHL level now, but their recent picks have all been on forwards, and so they also might want a defenseman.
Let's move
Yes.
on to number 11 and a controversial number 11 at that. I have Berkeley Katon at number 11. This is lower than a lot of people have him. I personally really like how he's played this season. He was in my underrated, overrated list. I think people have him really, really high. I think people really need to come down on him because there is a lot more of a project here than people are looking at. He's not going to play center the next level. I really am kind of determined that he's not going to do it. I think there are some valid Braden Point comparisons with him. Very dynamic skating. I kind of crapped on the skating a little bit because he's not as fast, but his skating is really good and he scores off the rush very well. He's going to
Yes.
be a very dynamic playmaking winger in the next level. I don't think he projects that well as a center. If he was a bit bigger or played a bit more physical and stuck it out at center, I think he would be a lot higher on this list. Definitely would lock himself into like a top 5 pick, but again, I don't think the effort was there this year for him to do that. And I think that's where it really starts is that effort isn't there in Berkeley's game. That's why he's at my number 11. Anna, your thoughts?
I think that everybody freaks out about the size thing, and I understand that when combined with his level of compete, if you are a smaller guy, like you have to have that skating ability, you have to have that kind of like weave in and out, like Cole Caulfield, big. I love Cole Caulfield so much. Smaller guy makes up for it, right? And like compete in skating and like his shot and all of those fun things that I don't know that Ken does. But I think like
He's got
just
a good
focus.
shot. So I mean, I'm not really worried about the shot. It's just kind of just everything else in this game.
Yeah, like I think you have to, or like I think you have to make up for it and compete, right? In a way that I'm not necessarily sure he does. And he has high point totals in the dub. They're kind of on par or above, guys who have transitioned to the NHL well, but there are like holes in his game where you think it's not going to transition as a center. He's going to be a good wing.
Yeah,
But do you want to use a pick in the top 10, like in the high top, like in the top half of the top 10 on a guy who plays center right now, but you would have to transition to wing in
exactly. And I think that's the big thing with him is just like there's so many question marks with his game. There's so many question marks with his will, like whether or not he has the
Yeah.
will to succeed at next level. I think he's going to be a good winger, definitely a top 6 player. Will he drive a line? That's where I have my questions. Is
Yeah.
if he's going to be a leader, can drive a line. That's where I have my concerns. That's why he's at number 11 for me. Let's now move on to my number 12 skater, Konsta Helenius from Ukraine. I am just praying every night before I go to bed that Konsta Helenius is going to be wearing a Flyers jersey in a month and a half because he's got a great game. I mean, very strong skating, shooting underused, but wow, he can rip a puck.
Yeah.
Passing game is kind of unreal. I mean, we need a playmaking center in Philadelphia, someone who can really feed the likes of Owen Tippett, Joel Farabee, Tyson Forster, who just emerged. He is excellent compete as well. I mean, I love his effort. I love a guy who just gives great effort. And again, the puck control is also something that's really solid too. I love Konsta Helenius. I have him kind of as somebody who excels at all things, but doesn't really exceed expectations at anything.
Mm,
I think he's going to be somebody that you really need to interview and see where his head's at,
I would
what
agree.
he's looking like he's going to do, like what he wants to succeed at. And I really think that 12 is a good ranking for him because, again, we have no idea what's going to happen with him. He is fantastic at all areas of the game, and he could really succeed with the right development. What are your thoughts?
I would love for this guy to fall to San Jose. I
Oh, yeah.
know that we are picking Celebrini number one, or I mean, probably our James BU guy. He's basically said it's a done deal. But I think that we could continue to boost our forward pool with this guy. Again, you mentioned the elite passing ability, the awareness in all zones. We talk like I'm like comparing everybody to San Jose in my childhood. But we think that like Jonathan GG 50 goal season, like it was Joe Thornton feeding him the puck. I think that like we could see something similar with this guy if he does come to San Jose. He's very aware, which is nice. He can play both wing and center, which would be good with the deepness of our forward pool. Again, he's played well against players older than him. I'm excited about this guy. He's had good production with Liga. Like I think he's gonna be great.
Let's move on to my number 13th ranked player who is also a playoff machine over there in Sweden, the Allsvenskan, Michael Bronnegard, an absolute workhorse. I really think that his game right now, if you watch his tape, he looks like an NHL player right
He
now.
does.
Playing in
He
the
does.
the way that he plays, his maturity in his game, he doesn't make that many mistakes.
No.
His shot also too. I ranked it as my number 3 shot in the draft. I will defend that to the day I die. It's
Yeah.
better than everyone besides Celebrini and Eiserman. I really think that his shot is so beautiful. He gets it off his stick very quick, very well. His skating needs some improvement. He does get great movement in general without, like, again, a great stride. His
Yeah.
passing, it's okay. He doesn't make those creative passes. He's very simple, very effective. Doesn't make a ton of mistakes. Puck control, uses it more as a puck protection. He doesn't really like get really flashy. But again, his effort and his compete, he can be a future Selke Award winner. I'm going out a bit of on a
Yeah.
limb here. I
No,
think he
I
could.
could see it.
Yeah, but he could win the Selkie sometime in the future. I really think his game compares to more of a less developed Alexander Barkov because, again, he doesn't have the stick handling, but the defensive reliability in his game, the shot, just the heightened maturity in his game, the good movement that he gets, he really looks special. And somebody that people are kind of sleeping on because he is so well-rounded of a prospect that
Yeah.
he looks like a safe pick. But again, he could be somebody that you're sleeping on and then you miss him and then he's dominating against your team in 2, 3 years. So
Exactly.
your thoughts on him?
This is another guy who, if the Sharks pick him, I'm going to probably throw a party. Like, Norway has never had a prospect like this kid. And
Exactly.
he's so impressive. He has good hockey sense. He has a good compete level. Again, he's simple, but he's effective. He makes good decisions. Like, you talk about the skating and the stick handling, like, those are like maybe parts of his game that aren't as good, but there aren't any major holes in it. He doesn't necessarily have like, like Eiserman's flashy shot in a way that would make him like a bigger name, but he's just so good. He's so reliable. He's good at so much. He's so effective playing against older competition. Again, like he is going to be like so reliable, so like tearing up the league in 2 years, and everybody's going to be like, where the hell was that guy? And I'm so obsessed with him. I think that if he falls to Detroit at 15, he is a very Detroit style
That's a
player.
Stevie Eisman pick waiting to happen. Yeah.
No, it is. He is literally a Stevie Y pick. Like, they always go for well-rounded players. They always go for people who are projectable with high-end work ethic. Like, cookie cutter Stevie Y pick. If he falls, Detroit's gonna take him, and it's gonna be another, like, oh my God, Detroit insanity pick. But he's always kind of been there.
Now let's quickly move on to Cole Eiserman at
Ooh,
number 14. Yes,
yeah,
Cole Eiserman. That's weird to say. It really is because
it
I had
is.
him so high earlier on the year. And again, I still think the potential is still there. He has a
Yeah,
sneaky good skating ability. He's quick and deceptive. He is super, super slippery in the offensive zone. I mean, you can't get a hold on this guy. And if you can't get a hold on him, he's going to score, and he's going to
yeah,
score a lot.
yeah.
83 goals in 81 games this year
It's
is
crazy.
insane. It is insane. He's the best shot in the last few drafts, and it's
I
not even
agree.
close. I think Bedard comes close. I said this in my best shooters video. I've never seen somebody who just has such a quick shot. Heard from scouts that if you go and watch him in person, it's like it's different than seeing it on TV. It is
Oh my God.
so much quicker. I want to see this guy play.
Me
I
too.
mean, there are some people that are like, come on, Cole Eiserman, Philadelphia. I mean, it would be really cool to see Eiserman and Michkov. And again, I'm kind of in that boat, but I want to see more
Yeah.
of someone who can support Michkov. But Eiserman, going to be you next year. His shooting ability is all well known. It's kind of just the compete, the IQ that we're really worried about. He has good hands and he has really good offensive creativity and great ability as well. But it's just he needs to round out his game a little bit better.
Yes.
I have him at 14. I sincerely think this is a mistake for me. Everyone else has shown better flashes overall.
Mhm.
Eiserman has the highest upside of
Agreed.
anybody else in this draft. And I know. Celebrating, he looks like a slam dunk home run pick.
Yeah.
I will continue to say this. If Eiserman has the will and the drive to round out his game the way that I think he can, he has the highest upside in this
I agree.
entire draft and will make everybody look silly for not taking him because he really has the potential to explode. Annie, your thoughts?
I mean, you really said it. Like, he is an elite goal scorer in a way that we have not seen in a couple of years. Like, he has the it factor. He's a threat from anywhere on the ice. Like, you see his numbers with the NTDP. It's crazy what he's doing. He's going to be U next year. He's going to develop really well there. This is another reason why I think Celebrity might go back. They're good friends. They played at Shattuck St. Mary's together. So like that, like which I think he could be fun as a Shark. Like I think
Yeah.
Celebrity would go crazy, but like again, you do need to round out the rest of that game, and I think he can do it, but I think he is a little bit more of a gamble. But again, like if he pans out, like everybody's gonna look stupid for not taking him.
Now moving on to my number 15th ranked prospect, somebody who has angered me in terms of international play recently, but I can't ignore that his upside is unreal. Trevor Conelly from the Tri-City Storm. This is another really, really risky pick, but it's not
Mhm.
because of his play on ice. His play on the ice is incredible. I honestly think that if he had no issues off the ice and no issues with temper on the ice as well, he could be top 10 easy. He's an aggressive skater. He just gets that speed. When he's at his top speed, nobody can beat him. He's unbeatable. Sneaky good shooter. I mean, if he gets more power under his shot because he's really skinny, he could develop into one of the best shooters in the
Yeah.
NHL. I really do. His passing is also fantastic. Puck control is a gold mine if developed properly. Again, he's a very raw prospect, but if he is developed well at the next level at Providence College, the sky is really the limit with him. Anna, your thoughts because he's in range for the Sharks pick as well.
He is. I don't want us to take him. I'm traumatized by Ryan Merkley. I think
Yeah,
that that's not the type of gamble that we need to be making right now. But that
exactly.
doesn't mean I don't think he's a good player, right? I just don't think he makes sense for us. Again, but if you look at like his production, his offense, his transition game, like he's in the top percentiles for the USHL. Great player. She's so good. Like he would be so much higher. Again, like you said, if it wasn't for the character issues, the pessimist in me is like some NHL team is going to get past the racial slurs. That's also why I don't want the Sharks to take him. We have a black general manager. I think that's not going to go over well. I think that like I don't think that's going to fly. I don't think that's going to fly in the Bay Area, stuff like that.
No,
But I think there are like I wish this wasn't the case, but I think there are NHL teams that are going to be like that's fine. I mean, like Tony DeAngelo's employed.
I'm worried about the Flyers being that team, being that
Yeah,
team that does that
yeah,
because
like
again, they might do that. So
yeah. D'Angelo's employed, Provorov's employed. People are going to be able to get past that. I think what's going to be the bigger red flag for some teams, not for all teams, for some teams, is the teammate issues.
yes.
Right? Like, I think, like,
Can I quickly cut in because
yeah, no,
yeah,
go ahead. I'm trying to pour my
because
next thought.
I think he's played on the Tri Cities his fifth team in 3 years. Like he's
Yeah.
like bounced around the country because of teammate issues. Like he's it's been well telegraphed. I'll also include an article below by Corey Proman about these issues because they're well documented and telegraphed there. But again, now one of the main concerns with me now is because it's kind of crept into his on ice play. We all saw the U18s, the gold medal game. I was really excited because USA, they were a better team than the
I would agree.
Canadian U18 team. They were better. They were better.
Yeah,
James Hagens is going to be the amazing American first overall pick that I have wanted for a long time.
I know.
But Trevor Conley kind of ruined all that. He took a really, really dumb penalty late in the game. 5 minute major, got kicked out of the game. They scored three unanswered goals on that penalty. And it is a tragedy. It really sucks because I really thought that again, if he just let these issues not affect him on the ice,
I
he would
agree.
have been fine. But now there are these character concerns, and it's really gonna blow up. And I think he might end up falling way past 15.
I
But
agree.
I can't ignore just like the on ice play. But it really
Yeah,
just sucks.
yeah.
Moving on to our number 16th ranked skater, Igor Chernyshov from Moscow Dynamo. He's projects as a really solid power forward, and I really like his upside. If he taps into that shooting, that is a gold mine. If he can really just get power under that shot. His passing also very advanced for his game. He thinks the game really well. He's got decent puck control, but again, his compete is very good. He looked bored sometimes in the MHL, which brought people's idea of his compete down. He really, really gave a ton of effort at the KHL.
Mhm.
Watch his physical plays, watch his defensive plays. He could really shine as another power forward in this draft. I really like him. That's why I feel so confident in him. But again, I'm losing a little bit more faith. He could drop. So your thoughts, Anna?
I mean, I really like him. There are a lot of players in this class, it seems, especially a high up, who don't necessarily have one key skill. Like there aren't a lot of players in this class like an Eiserman who is just this really, really insane shot. There are a lot of players in this class like a Celebrini who are very well rounded, who you can't poke like a big hole in their game. And this is another one of those guys. He has a variety of tools. He's good at puck protection. Again, like when he was playing in the KHL, he competed really hard. What that says to me is like if you challenge him, he's gonna be fine. Right? Like I think that sometimes like, he is still a kid. Like if he's not getting challenged, he might truly be bored. And I think that might have him drop a little bit, but I think his compete at the KHL level might make that seem better. I think that if he goes to the combine, if he meets with teams, combine interviews are probably going to play a pretty big role in what teams think about him.
Let's now move on to number 17. Someone who has kind of been the highest riser that I've seen in this entire draft, because I didn't really have him tremendously high until like kind of later on in this year. Michael Hage from the Chicago Steel, the UMich commit. I know you like this guy. Come on, he's a
I
U
love it.
Michigan
I love
commit.
this guy.
Exactly. A dynamic skating ability. He just gets great separation speed, so smooth in the zone. His shot, very solid, and it can only go up from there. His scoring ability really projects as something that could potentially drive a line someday. It really is just a testament to how well the USHL prospects have been this year, and it's just showing how much of a league it is emerging to be. So Michael Hage, really solid passing ability, really solid puck control as well. His compete, I'm very, very high on his compete because he cuts through the middle. He attacks defensemen. He shows potential of driving a line as a first line center potentially. I think he may be fitting in second line guy, worst case scenario, third line, fourth line. But Michael Hage, the potential is there. Anna, your thoughts?
I mean, you hit it on the head. Like Michigan commit, the Steel to Michigan pipeline goes crazy
Yeah,
and has
it's
for the last couple of years. It's wild.
it goes Little Caesars to Chicago Steel to UMich, and again,
That's exactly how it
there's
goes.
no deviation. Like
No.
yeah, that's what you have to do.
And every one of those guys is great.
Yeah.
And like,
Shout out Mackie Skamiskevich. Love you.
oh God, I love that guy.
Yeah.
But again, like he is so good. He makes Stevens pay with his shot and his passes. He's hard to contain, right? He drives
So
down the middle.
hard.
And when his game is on, he's so good. Obviously, like he's been a little inconsistent. There have been some injuries, but I think that Michigan will fix that. I think
Yeah.
Michigan will help him. They have a really good track of developing people. Again, there is personal bias in this, but I think that I trust Michigan to really round him out and develop him into what he has the potential to be. So I think he could potentially be a steal.
And that's what Michigan does. I mean, look what they did
Yeah.
with Gavin Brindley. Oh my goodness. So yeah. Let's now
Mm.
move on to number 18 and another player from the USN TDP, Teddy Stiga. I have him higher than like basically every other
I
list,
agree.
but I love him. I really think that there's a special aspect to his game that you can't find in most other prospects.
Mhm.
And again, the U18s, it really, really swayed me. Yes, he played in a line with James Higgins, but I saw the passes that he was making. I saw the stick handling that he was doing, some of the shots that he was making. His skating also as well. Very, very strong. He's going to be playing at BC next year. And I just see the potential as going through the roof as a guy who could play with Ryan Leonard, Gabe Perot next year. Will Smith, depending on if he signs. We'll see if he signs.
Yeah.
Again, we'll see. I think he might go to San Jose because of Celebrini, but we will
Yeah.
see.
My thoughts on that.
Stiga is going to be joining a loaded BC team next year. I really think it's going to be amazing for his development. Your thoughts on Stiga as a whole? Do you have him lower than me? Because a lot of people do.
Have him. I mean, I'm really partial to an NTDP guy. I have him a little lower than you, I'm not gonna lie.
That's fine.
But I
Everyone
am
does.
partial to an NTDP guy. His stats are good. He's in, again, like that top percentile of the USHL. And like I said for Hage in Michigan, like BC is gonna be a great place for this kid to grow and develop. And he has the tools, they're there. You give him a great player, he can pass, he can stick handle, like all of these things. And he's gonna be playing alongside really, really great players at BC, a Perot, a Leonard. Smith, I think I saw this take that I really agree with. I think Smith signs if Celebrini signs, and if Celebrini goes back, I think Smith goes back.
Yeah.
Because of like where the Sharks are going to be and their compete. So I
That would
really
be an
love,
electric bean pot. Oh my
I
goodness.
know, I kind of like need it to happen actually.
Because it's
Um,
gonna be Celebrini with Eiserman plus the freshman line plus Stiga. Oh my god.
no, that bean pot is, I know, I actually need that to happen now. Like that bean pot's gonna go crazy.
Because I'm gonna be abroad and I'm gonna be like I'm gonna be pirating and watching that game.
Oh,
Oh
you
my god.
have to. I
Yeah,
think I did. I think I did. So, you know.
that's wow. That is such a that's
Yeah,
you're making me I'm nervous now for that because that's gonna be so amazing.
I know
But
it's gonna
yeah,
be
no,
so good. But yeah, I like his potential. I like his potential.
oh, exactly. He does have a very high limit to his potential. I think he is only showing us the surface of what his game
I
could
agree.
potentially be. Again, at this level, I have a lot of guys like Hage, like Stiga, like a guy we're about to talk about at number 19 in like 2 seconds. They all have potential to be so much better if they just round out their game,
I
get a
agree.
little bit bigger, and again, just play some hockey at like a higher level.
Exactly.
And
I think
that,
college is going to be really,
yeah.
really good for them, and I love how the NCAA has been really doing that for guys.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think it's a great decision for them. I think they're going to develop really well.
And it's a little bit of a concern for my next prospect at number 19, Beckett Seneca. I love this prospect. I really, really love Beckett. He's a great player. I'm a little worried about his development going forward because, again, Hage and Stiga, they're set. They're going to the NCAA. They have tremendous tools, just like Seneca. Their skating is really solid. Seneca, actually, I think, is probably the better skating out of all of them. He
Hmm.
might even crack my top 5 skaters. He is really solid. Speedy skating, looks very agile. Doesn't have the fastest speed, can't really break away, but again, he is so solid and tight, good edge work. His shot is deceptively strong. He's 6'3". I mean, Montreal's talking about taking him top 5, which kind of like I don't get it why they're bringing him up that much because he's a project. He's gonna be something that you're going to
Yeah.
need to work on for a long time. I don't think Montreal has that patience with a guy like Seneca, especially seeing with how they reacted with Reinbacher this year.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I really have a soft spot for Beckett Seneca. He's really shot up my lists. Again, there's so many aspects of his game that I really like. I can't really poke a lot of holes in his game. I mean, he's got a high IQ player who moves
Yeah.
really well, very good tools, very big size. I mean, Anna, are you seeing what I see?
I also really like this guy. I feel like there's a lot of guys in this draft who are very like players that I really enjoy. Like again, like he is 6'3". He needs to fill out a little bit. But you know, it's the draft. So many of these kids are string beans. And like they have the time to put on muscle, and as long as they do that, I think they're gonna be totally fine. Like his play with the puck is so good. He plays such a smart game. He can score. He can set up his teammates. I think he's gonna be great. I have seen some talks of him going to San Jose. I would be excited about
At
that.
14, that would be
Uh,
cool.
it would be cool. It might be a little bit of a reach. I don't see a reach of Montreal taking him fifth just because he would need a couple years of development, and I don't know if they're ready for that. But I think a team like San Jose, we have a couple of defensive guys who could go before him, so I think it would be fine.
All
But
right.
yeah, well, I think he'd project, but I think he'd be good.
All right. Now it sounds good. At number 20, I have Liam Greentree from Windsor in the OHL. Now, I've kind of really gone back and forth on this guy. He was in my overrated, underrated list as one of my overrated players, and I still kind of feel that way. I think 20 is a great place for him to stay. I think he's going to stay within this 24 to 16 range. And I think that's where he's going to end up being drafted. Has a great scoring ability, 90 points on a team that was finished dead last in the OHL. That's worth talking about. It really is. He's got one of the best shots in the draft. He's got an excellent wrist shot, very quick release. His skating, though, draws him back. One of the weakest parts of his game. Very big, clunky, slow movements. He needs to get better straightaway speed. I think his edge work shows sign of potential, though. He looks like a guy who could be a project because he needs to use that size more. He needs to use that skating more. Anna, your thoughts on Greentree? Where do you have him?
I also have him kind of in this range. I think that his makeup screams potential. You talk about the edge work, you talk about like his offensive ability. I think like he gets into the gritty areas. He's poised under pressure. He makes the right decisions. I think he just again needs to develop a little bit more. But I think around this area he could be a really good pickup for a team.
Now, I'm cutting in here just to let you know, once again, this is going to be broken up into 2 parts. So, as you can see, I just finished prospect number 20, who is the amazing Liam Greentree. And now, if you want to see prospects 21 through 50, which we also put a good chunk of our time into, is probably going to be around 30 minutes, please go check out my YouTube channel because I just posted another one as well. If you want even more detail and even more knowledge about the draft and the top 50 at large, we put the entire uncut podcast for us which is like an hour and 50 long. If you just want to like sit in the car and listen to that one, I put that on Spotify. It includes even more details about these picks and why we put them there. So if you're looking to have more detail, please go check out the podcast. And also, please go check out the other episode that I posted today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you check out part 2.